At the center of the disability competent care model are the patients themselves. It encourages them to be in the lead when it comes to making choices about their health and wellness and about their life in the community. Of course, disability competent care is focused on meeting the patient's physical and clinical needs, but the model considers emotional, social, intellectual, and spiritual needs as well.
The first thing that they might want to say is, "Wow, you use this computer to talk. Can you show me how it works? I would like to know that doctors understand my concerns. Please try and summarize what I have said." Doctors might say, "Am I on the right track, and I want to make sure that I understand your concerns."
The disability competent care model holds 3 core values which are its key drivers: patient-centered approach, respect for the patient's choices, and elimination of medical or institutional bias. The first core value is that disability competent care is a patient-centered approach. The model cultivates respect for the patient's choices and calls for the elimination of medical or institutional bias. The second core value, respect for the patient's choices, means that providers should educate and inform the patient about options and recommendations for care, but then honor the individual's choices, even if those choices are inconsistent with the provider's recommendations. The third core value is elimination of medical or institutional bias. These values are woven through every aspect of the disability competent care model.
So it's important for you as a clinician to ask the person's opinion about what do they think is going on. They're the expert. We're sort of the guide to help them get through the medical care maze and help them figure out things that they don't know.
In a patient-centered approach, each person's plan of care is developed in collaboration with the patient and the provider, ensuring the patient's preference, goals, and choices take priority.
One of the things that I often say is my philosophy in taking care of patients is that I want to help that person achieve the health that they need to live the life that they want to live. That means that in a lot of ways, no matter who the patient is, they get to decide what health means to them. I've got my ideas about what health means, and health means that we do screening for cancer, for example, or encourage patients to quit smoking. But the patient themselves might have a very different definition of health. Might be influenced by their disability, might be influenced by just their background. And we need to respect that for all patients.
The idea that someone might make a healthcare choice that I think might be life-limiting is really scary. So being able to lay out all of the choices that are truly choices, and then maybe you don't agree with their choice, but actually what you're doing is the most respectful thing that you can do. Those are all things that add to quality of life and involve a choice for that person. We all want to feel in control, and so if you happen to have a disability and you happen to choose something that you know isn't going to necessarily go well 100% of the time, you still got to choose. And that feels good from just a human standpoint.
One part of this core value is the concept of dignity of risk. Dignity of risk means the patient has the right to make an informed choice and take risks if that is what they choose.
In the disability community, a lot of times there is a very maternalistic viewpoint that they have to be taken care of, and oh wait, no, that's not safe. So it's about having that risk that people can go out there and do whatever they need to, and it's going to be their own choices that makes that the dignity part of it. Being able to have the respect to be able to say, no, this is how I want to live my life.
Disability competent care calls for the elimination of medical or institutional bias. This is a critical part of making sure providers address the patient as a whole person, rather than just their condition or diagnosis. The patient is the expert in their own health, so their voice needs to be prioritized. While biases can be difficult to identify, since they are often unconscious, they can result in health disparities and poorer outcomes due to basic needs not being addressed.
All of us have bias about various things. The risk for a provider is that you will miss something important. And so if you don't look, or you're not intellectually curious, or you don't want to engage with that person, then you haven't truly done your job. And at the end of the day, I don't know too many providers that wouldn't feel bad about that. Where I think it's harder is if your staff has biases that they bring that you may not even be aware of. And so any provider who's thinking about a quality improvement project for their practice where they want to be more inclusive of people with disabilities, I would encourage them to have a non-judgmental meeting with their staff and see what their staff actually is thinking. Because if you understand where people are coming from, then it helps go a long way towards making things better for everybody.
This video series and the accompanying materials are meant to give you information and tips. They're not intended to supersede the requirements found in the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. As you begin to assess and make changes in your practice, it is important to consult the ADA for precise requirements.